Okay. So, what were you watching there? This is a prototype of a build that I'm calling Dancing Dervish Discharge. It's pretty simple. Discharge is Discharge. It uses Power Frenzy Endurance charges. And the question with Discharge has always been, how do you get the charges? There's a few ways. You can use Farrell's Fur or Replica Farrell's Fur, reduce the duration on that, have that trigger more often. There's Ralakesh's Impatience, which I think is a giant hack. Very effective ways. But turns out there is another way. And that way is with links and dancing dervishes. So let me show you the Link Mastery, and also the Minion Defense Mastery. What you have to do is you have to take Minion Defense Mastery, Link skills can target damageable minions. And then you have to take Link Mastery, linked targets share Endurance, Frenzy, and Power charges with you. And then for bonus damage, I'm also taking enemies near your link targets have Fire, Cold, and Lightning exposure, which is why this is not the final character, but which is why I'd want to take Mastermind to Discord, because that means you get a lot of extra exposure on the enemy. But essentially what happens is I summon Dancing Dervishes. I'm using the Dancing Dervish sword. Whenever I do a melee hit, it counts as a rampage kill. So I'm using Cyclone for that to trigger melee hits. And when the Dancing Dervishes manifest, I can link to them because they're destructible minions. However, they are the only minion, as far as I know, in the game that when they die or despawn, will not kill you. Which is very important, because every other destructible minion... let me show you. I get... It's too high, SRS, okay. I got a lower level SRS somewhere, yes. Okay, so... Here we go, here's Raging Spirit. I link to it. And he's going to despawn in a few seconds. Oh, okay. Apparently I can't die in my hideout. But if I do that... in an actual area... There you go. So, usually people don't use link skills with minions because that will happen. I have heard of people using link skills with Animate Guardians, which aren't meant to die, really. And I could see a world where you use it with, some really tanky specters or something. Anyway, that's not the point. You want Discharge to gain charges as quickly as possible. And you have two minions that are now running around, hitting really, really fast. Their Cyclone attacks can do 12 attacks per second, I think, in optimal circumstances. So, what can we do with that? Well, we can have Power Charge on critical strike support. We can also give them increased crit strikes, as well as minion speed to accelerate the attacks per second. So that takes care of Power Charges. But there's no equivalent support for Frenzy or Endurance charges. I did try Endurance charge on melee stun, which does work for white mobs, but will not work for anything other than white mobs, really, because to do a stun you have to do at least 1% of their life in damage, and we're not investing into the minion damage here. So when you look at a Guardian with 30 or 40 million health, you need to do at least 1 million, 3 million worth of hit, which just is not happening with these Dancing Dervishes. But there is another way. You can use, where is it? Poacher's Mark. If you get the quality of this up, for every 1% quality, you get 0.5% chance to grant a Frenzy Charge on hit. So, I'm using Intuitive Link, so that the Dervishes are casting Poacher's Mark constantly from me, on the enemies that they're hitting, and they have a 9% chance on each hit right now because I'm using Enhance level 3 to gain a Frenzy Charge. And so the real key to this build is, even though the Dancing Dervishes have a maximum of 3 power Frenzy Endurance charges, I have more than that. I have instability. I've got all 3 power charge nodes allocated. And I'm also running Badge of the Brotherhood. So I have 6 frenzies and powers max, and as you saw earlier in the video, I was getting up to 6 power and frenzy charges as the dervishes were running through. So, that's basically it. I don't have any other tech. I don't know if this can be a real build. The massive disadvantage, of course, as everyone who plays Discharge will know, is my weapon slot is gone. I am unarmed when I'm casting Discharge, which means I cannot use Void Batteries, I cannot use Malachi's Loop. And there go 3 power charges, and also a lot of power charge damage scaling. I've tried to make up for that by my long-term plan, and in the PoB that's attached to this, I would want to be a cultist to get +1 power charges and some extra power charge scaling, and then use Forbidden Flesh Flame Jewel to grab Mastermind of Discord, so that the enemies near link targets have exposure gets more exposure, and then you can use Frostbite and Elemental Weakness to negativize their resists even more. Alternatively, you can use Hydrosphere to use it to get exposure. There's a few different ways. But I don't know if there's a more optimal way of doing this, so I'm just putting this tech out there for the hive mind of PoE builds to ponder. But yeah, this is the tech. You can absolutely get enough power charges and frenzy charges within 2 seconds to use Discharge relatively constantly. The frenzy charges are a bit less reliable than the powers because they only have 9% chance on hit, but it's relatively comfortable. Yeah, so if you've got any ideas or comments for this build, I'd love to hear them. Put them in the YouTube comments, or there's a Reddit thread attached to this video. Pop it in there, and yeah, I wonder if we can make something really awesome with this tech.